Welcome to One Chapter, One Thought. I'm Pastor Chris from Lincroft Bible Church in New Jersey, and every weekday I read one chapter of the New Testament and offer a brief devotional thought. Today's reading is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2. And when he returned to Capernaum after some days, it was reported that he was at home, and there were many gathered together, so that there was no more room, not even at the door. And Jesus was preaching the word to them, and they came, bringing him a paralytic carried by 4 men. And when they could not get near him because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him. And when they had made an opening, they let down the bed on which the paralytic lay. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, some of the scribes were sitting there, questioning in their hearts, "Why does this man speak like that? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" And immediately Jesus, perceiving in his spirit that they thus questioned within themselves, said to them, "Why do you question these things in your hearts? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Rise up, take your bed, and walk'? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I say to you, rise, pick up your bed, and go home." And he rose and immediately picked up his bed, and he went out before all of them, so that they were amazed and glorified God, and saying, "We never saw anything like this." He went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and was teaching them. As he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at a tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed Jesus. And as Jesus reclined at the table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. And the scribes of the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" When Jesus heard it, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. People came and said to Jesus, "Why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus replied, "Can the wedding guest fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them. Then they will fast in that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunken cloth on an old garment. If he does, then the patch will tear away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins." One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" But Jesus said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was in need and hungry, he and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar the high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which it was not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and also gave it to those who were with him? And he said to them, The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." One thought. Why would anyone be upset if Jesus forgives another person's sins? In Mark 2, 1 through 12, the first passage in this chapter, there are the first rumblings of conflict. They can be heard in this chapter, and eventually that conflict ends up with Jesus being crucified. And the story is fairly easy to follow. Jesus is teaching in a crowded house in Capernaum, and 4 friends get an idea. They have one of their friends is paralyzed, crippled, can't walk, and they want to get to Jesus because they know that he's a healer. They've heard stories, but they can't get in because it's too crowded. And so they go up on the roof. They say, "Let's dig through the roof and we'll lower our paralyzed friend down to Jesus. That's the most direct route to get there. Now, homes in the ancient Near East, they weren't like homes today. They didn't have roof shingles. They weren't often multi-story things or anything like that. Homes in Israel at that time would have been simple one-story structures, and they would be made with mud brick walls. They had flat roofs made from wooden beams, and they were often covered with thatch and reeds and packed mud and clay. So, they're able to dig through and make this hole in the roof and, lower their friend down. And Jesus heals him and forgives his sins. So why are the scribes so incensed by this? Because Jesus in his actions is clearly claiming to be God here. In Isaiah 43, Yahweh, God the Father, speaks, and he says, "I am he who blots out transgressions for my own sake." So the people of Israel, they were well discipled into the belief that, only God can forgive sins. That's also why they offered these animal sacrifices, which were to represent God forgiving sins. And when Jesus says, "I forgive you," he essentially is replacing the temple. He's replacing these sacrifices. He's saying all of this forgiveness that you need is actually found in me. And the scribes, they realize this because they say, who can forgive sins but God alone? They are so close to getting to the truth, but because they don't want to submit to Jesus, they miss it, right? The reason why they get so angry is because this means that if Jesus is really God, that they would have to submit to him, give their life over to him, stop trying to run their own life through their own religion, and come and have relationship with Jesus. They would have to find forgiveness in him. That's why they're mad.